Okay, hello everyone. My next guest is Denis Manson, a very good friend of mine and a colleague. Dennis has been a licensed engineer for 30 plus years, so he's been around a bit and he's seen a lot of changes in the licensing system. I've got to say, I'm going to say this, Dennis, because our audience is worldwide,
Mm.
that Dennis is when he says he's been in the licensing system, the Australian one, and if that one has had a lot of changes in itself, let alone the ASA and other NAAs, FAA, whatever. In the last 20 years, Dennis has been a technical training professional. I want him to elaborate, and this is one of the reasons why we invited him because he's got something special to show us in terms of what he's been doing in the realm of aircraft engineering training and development. And I'm really excited about this project of his, and I'll let him tell you more about it. I recently saw in on a LinkedIn post a cabin door training tool. I was really impressed. Let tell us about it, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. It was great to see that you had seen our latest product and commented on it. Yeah, as Chris mentioned, I've been in the aviation business for a long time, so yeah, I've seen changes in the licensing systems, but you know, still rivets and bolts. There's nothing much has changed with regards to the hardware of the aircraft. Obviously avionics and propulsion systems have evolved over that time. But the things that we teach young people coming into the industry and under the Part 66 exams and licensing system, it's the same as when Chris and I were young fellas. So you know, the evolution that we've seen over our careers really stands us in good stead, I think, for creating interesting and immersive and motivating resources for young people coming into the industry now. Um, just I've run a business for the last 10 years, and when I first went into business, I was thinking that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to promote virtual reality, and I wanted to really change the world, if you like, of aviation training. But I've found over that 10 years that I've really tempered my not tempered my passion, but tempered my focus, if you like. Whereas I was an evangelist, an advocate for virtual reality and other extended realities, I've really come to realize that sometimes the best way of teaching something is with a whiteboard and a marker. It's virtual reality is just another resource that instructors can use. It has a particular function, and a particular advantage in that young people really like to be self-directed in their learning. They like to explore. Chris, you've mentioned many times about young people going to YouTube and looking for lots of examples on YouTube for how they can enhance their knowledge of the aviation industry and the subjects that they're studying. So we appreciate that the younger generations are self-directed and they've been entertained in their learning for a very long time. My daughter's 21 now, just finishing university, and since preschool, she's been playing computer games that they look like games, but they're teaching kids how to read and write and things like that. So it's sort of subtle learning by stealth, some people call it. But our latest projects in my company, it's called 10 Hammers. You can visit us at 10hammers.com. We have built a replica cabin door. So this is not unusual. There are other companies out there that have built resources for cabin crew training and for engineering training that are in essence a digital twin, of a component or an assembly. This is no different. However, we've focused on Embraer aircraft. There's lots of companies out there that are building resources that model Boeing and Airbus types. We've deliberately chosen the Embraer 190 because if in the worldwide fleet, if you take Airbus and Boeing out, then there's Embraer comes next. So there's quite a number of Embraer aircraft flying around the world. So we've taken that idea of immersive training and building the digital twin, and we've duplicated an E190 Embraer E190 cabin door. And this is only the first of many projects that we're going to have on the Embraer platform. We're going to progressively build more and more detail into our Embraer models. But you'll see if you check out our videos, the idea of the model is to allow people to interact with the assembly in a safe way. There's plenty of companies around the world now whose operation is very lean, and it's difficult for cabin crew and engineers to train on the actual aircraft. The aircraft are out earning money for the organization, so there's very little downtime. So some of the organizations I've worked for have experienced this. So we've deliberately tried to create a resource that is flexible. People can use it in any location. There's no need to bring people into a central point. The training can be deployed out to them if you like, and it's safe. It's a safe and benign environment. In the real world, cabin crew often have the problem of damaging aircraft equipment in the course of their training, or accidentally blowing off an escape slide. That can happen. So
especially on an Embraer.
especially on an Embraer.
Yeah.
I don't think it's much different to other aircraft. I've seen plenty of escape slides accidentally
Yeah.
flying off. But yeah, it's a great project that I've enjoyed being involved in. And like I said, it's only the start for us. It's the start of the Embraer platform being the basis of other immersive training opportunities. But the door, people interact with the door. They can open, they can close, they can arm and disarm slides. The Embraer aircraft, if anyone knows it, is more complex than other aircraft that I've seen. There's 3 independent handles, and so the actual training regime that the cabin crew trainers use is pretty complex. To try and get people familiar with this
And to
door.
do it safely.
Exactly. Yeah, do it safely. And so that's exactly the point of our tool, is to try and provide familiarization training. The regulators usually say that final check to line has to be done on a real aircraft. That's fine, but our product and other things in a similar vein are there to provide familiarization so the final assessment can be as efficient as possible.
That was going to be my next question. The day before yesterday, where I'm working, the camo quality manager, he was in his glass box over there, and I could see him with this set of. He was with somebody who was obviously trying to show him this new training thing, and he had a set of goggles on, and had these 2 devices, and he was doing all these funny movements, and the guy's in his 60s. It actually scared me. It scared me, not the fact that we're going this way. It's what scared me is here's a 60-year-old who's not scared to. I would be terrified of how where I'm going with this is you said the authorities always want the real thing to be the last tick in the box. How far are we actually away from doing a whole course
Mm.
because I've seen medical students, for example, they're doing now heart surgeries, heart transplant operations or VR transplants. But
Mhm.
what about the feel, the actual feel of doing the job? And if you're, I don't know, if you're splicing a cable,
Mm.
how do you practice that if it's all virtual?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the evolution of the technology is astounding, really, Chris. Since I've been interested in VR, maybe over the last 12 or so years, um, things have come along. Like most computing um, technologies, the things have come along in leaps and bounds. There are devices now that people have devised where they they have they're tactile gloves. They're called haptic gloves. They provide tactile feedback for people in a virtual environment. So, say for example, you're sitting in a virtual cockpit and you reach out to flick a switch. In a virtual environment, there's usually no feedback at all. But these tactile gloves actually give feedback to the user that they've touched and flicked a switch and or rotated a knob, things like that. So that's an evolution from 5 or so years ago, and I can only see that improving. What we're proposing with our door is I've done some study and made some decisions along the way about the deficiencies of virtual reality, and that sensory information is, I believe, a deficiency that needs to be corrected. If we go about our business in the real world, we're using five senses.
Hmm.
But if we go into a virtual environment, we're really only using two, just sight and sound. And sometimes the sound isn't very good either. Sound design is only really a new thing in virtual reality. So what about the touch? The touch is such an integral part of a lot of jobs that we do. In for maintenance technicians and for other job roles in the industry. So what we're proposing with our E190 door is that I'm working with a university here in Brisbane to create a little modular handle kit, if you like, or rig, so that we're the physical handles are going to be exactly the same dimensions and move through the same arc as the real handles on the aircraft. So what's going to happen is somebody will approach the digital door using a headset, and they'll be able to reach out and grab a physical handle that feels exactly like the real handle. So that's improving the sensory information that a person gets. Um, it's increasing it by one extra sense, basically.
Hmm.
So that will improve the situational awareness of the trainee, and there's plenty of university studies that have written papers saying, well, enhanced situational awareness means greater training effectiveness. So that's an interesting sort of add-on to what we're building in the digital world. We're actually reverting back to the physical in some way.
Hmm.
And this is not a thing that I just dreamt up myself. In rotary wing training, in helicopter search and rescue and medical evacuation, they've been training their crewmen for a couple of years now using similar things, where they have a mock-up of a helicopter, and pilots sit in the front seat, and crewmen are down in the back deck. So there's lots of CRM communication going on between the pilots and the crewmen, and the crewmen are wearing virtual goggles. So when they lean out of the rig to look down um, on the area where the aircraft is hovering, and this is just a simulation, through the virtual environment, they see the ocean, or they see a cliff face or something, and a person needs to be winched from that area. So they're actually combining the digital view with the physical view. They're in a mock-up with the same dimensions as a helicopter, so they're hanging on to handles and they've got a door open. They're holding a winching cable in their hand, and the winching cable's going up and down. So they're feeling these tactile things, but in the digital view, they're seeing what they can't see in real life. They're seeing a churning ocean or a cliff face. So that's that's a great uh, combination of the physical and the digital, I think. So that's what we're trying with our door. And you can see lots of other applications of that in maintenance training too, like confined space entry, fuel tank entry, being able to wear a pair of goggles, but actually maneuver your way up into a confined space. And
Mm,
that initial sense of claustrophobia that you get when you're going into a fuel tank.
mm,
Um, Welding, soldering, things like that. I've seen some interesting welding tutorials where people have to hold a welding rod and a couple of pieces of metal and actually perform a welding task. So they're holding something physical, but they're seeing the welding task in a virtual reality. And it's quite easy for an assessor, to see, quite rapidly if a person's doing that job correctly or not. And there's like artificial intelligence to actually remotely assess these people, saying are they using the right speed and the right angle of the welding rod? Um, but sense in a sensory fashion, they're combining the physical with the digital, and I think that's the key. As you mentioned, Chris, that's the key to being able to do things, you know, right up to final assessment. The more sensory information, the better. If you think of a flight simulator, right? That's the ultimate virtual environment.
mm.
It's an absolute replication of the real world.
With artificial feel and everything, you know.
Yeah. They're just looking out a window with um, with digital vision beyond that window. It's just like wearing a headset, except they're in a big environment. And people used to scoff at simulators for pilot training, but now some pilots can train all the way up to being checked to line in a simulator, and the regulators are quite happy with that. So I think there's evolution to come in virtual reality. Uh, who knows if the regulators are going to um, be flexible in their thinking with regards to how it's used. Um, at the moment, they're not. They're saying the final assessment has to be done on the real aircraft. There has to be assessment. People monitoring um, people's activity and assessment in the real world. So we're using virtual tools as an efficiency measure, familiarization and to make the final assessment as quick as possible. But who knows, with the way the technology is evolving, that might change in the future. They might allow final assessment to be done in a virtual environment.
One of the days of CBT where you had to press F4 to start the fuel pump and click on it with your mouse,
Yep,
or
yep.
whatever. And now it's really is actually touching the fuel pump switch and pressing it, and
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing. And you and I are getting on. Do you think, how far do you think we'll be progressing before you have to hang up your boots and say, all right, I'm passing this on. So let's say somebody starting today to get a license to become an aircraft engineer.
Mm.
Do you envisage him in 5, 10, 15, 20 years seeing a completely VR led course from a type course from A to Z?
Um, I'm a little bit skeptical that will happen. I think undoubtedly the most type courses within 10 years, most type courses will involve VR or other extended realities, like mixed reality where you are combining a digital world with a physical world. But just in the same way that I think that some things are better taught using a whiteboard and a marker pen. I think there's a lot of things in a type course that you know don't need doesn't need to be replicated in VR. It's better with other CBT tools that we have now. It's probably more expensive to not cost effective to actually develop it for VR. But certainly there will be organizations within 10 years that are replicating entire aircraft um, in a digital model, that can be used in a type course. Now that's and again, you have to be careful because if you're teaching somebody about a 737 hydraulic system, taking them into the 737 wheel well and going, hey, you see that hydraulic line up there that goes from this pump, to that valve. Sometimes the real world is confusing, when a person's trying to learn it. That's why we have schematic diagrams and things like that, to simplify the real world. So we have to be careful. What's I was about to say, what's the point in duplicating an entire aircraft? Well, there is a point, because sometimes the real aircraft's not available for people to look at. But if people have to, if we're taking into account learning levels and a progression of knowledge from very basic, up to complex and type course level, then we have to be very careful with the lower levels, not to confuse people, not to give them too much information. We don't take a first year apprentice into a 737 wheel well and quiz that person on where those hydraulic lines are going and what that valve does. They have to learn progressively. So yeah, so in answer to your question, I think there will be a lot of virtual resources used in type training within 10 years, certainly. I think it will become common um, and accepted, but I don't think it'll be used for everything. I think there'll still be some traditional ways of conveying information, and some of the current things that we use now, the CBT and the interactive stuff, even flat panel trainers, um, you know, sometimes that they're just as good to learn the muscle memory of certain tasks. Interrogating an MCDU or something like that. There's probably no need for virtual reality in that regard.
Mm.
But it's an interesting proposal. I'm really happy to think of the time when I'll be handing over to other people to continue the evolution. It's because there will be a significant evolution over the next 10 years and then the 10 years to come after that.
Fantastic.
Mm.
So that's what keeps you going, eh? Handing the baton eventually, and it's I've got mixed feelings about it. In some ways, it might be my age. I suppose you're more accepting of it because you're in it. I'm scared of it. My kids tell me, "Oh, you're useless, Dad." They are doing things on their phones and whatever, and um, I suppose um my age, my generation, we just got to go with the flow and accept it. Otherwise, we'll get left behind because that's the way the world is going. The problem I see also is that with a lot of good comes a lot of bad. And this is what we've seen in our membership, for example, where um, we see people getting informed on social media, Google, that doesn't exactly have um always have the right info.
Mhm.
So so if you're informing yourself about VR and IA about a specific subject, and you could be also misinforming yourself,
Mm.
and then following the wrong path.
Yeah.
And if you're using it for training and you start wrong, it might take a long time. If you're doing this like these guys and girls doing self-study,
Mm.
you might be on a long way before you realize, hey, or somebody even you don't even realize somebody else tells you, mate, you've been doing that wrong all this time
Mm.
because they've been following the wrong Google thread or the wrong bit of information off a Facebook um, thread that somebody's put up half
Mm.
half on purpose, half out of malice, just to confuse people, and
Mm.
that's one of the setbacks of modern electronic uh, information technology.
Yes, I agree, Chris. And you only have to look at the uses of AI now and deep fakes, things like that. There's never been a more pertinent time to actually really be careful about where you get your information from and to quiz everything, in your whether it's in your own mind or the research that you do to find out that the source of that information is legitimate. But this has not been it's not been something that's new to this particular generation. We've had fake information in the past. Um, you know, we've had bogus parts that are passed off as legitimate. So I think you're right in that information now is is problematic, and it's hard to check the legitimacy of a lot of information. But that's proliferated because of social media and more free flow of information around the world these days. It's not particularly a new concept. It's just that it's more prevalent because there's a lot more information going around. So yes, I would absolutely remind your membership and other young people coming into the industry to really check the source of the information that you're getting, because there are people who and sometimes it's just they fancy themselves as an instructor, but they don't have the experience to be an instructor. So the way they convey information is difficult to understand. Um, it's a tricky world. It's a hard world to live in. But certainly young people coming up um, these days, they have more of an appreciation of uh, fake information.
What's real and what's not.
Yeah, whereas our generation, we've had to sort of evolve with the times, and we go, well,
Watch this video 10 times and think, did he really say that?
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
it wasn't so long ago that if we got an email from a government department, we wouldn't hesitate on clicking on the link. And
Mm.
now everyone goes, "Oh, hang
Don't
on,
click
we
on the
better
link.
we better
Yeah.
wait because, or let's have a closer look at this. Is this a legitimate email?"
Yeah.
I think young kids are more attuned to that.
Mm.
They're smart people, and but yes, I would definitely reinforce that message that you make to people
Or
coming into the industry to really check the information that they're getting.
maybe we can do a cooperation with the youngsters. I'll teach them, or we'll teach them the how it's supposed to work, and they'll teach us how to virtually train on it. I don't know, but because we've got the information and they've got the technology, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, where it's interesting to see where we're going.
Mm.
Well, that was really interesting. That is. And what I'm going to do, I would like us, if you want and can, I would like us to do another one of these in 6 months
Mm.
so that we can see the process, the progress in this project that you're doing.
Yeah,
All right.
we've got a few projects on the go at the moment, and some, like I mentioned, some not as complex as the cabin door. You know, some schematics. You know, some helicopter schematics and things like that. So it will be interesting to look back in a few months' time on the evolution of these projects. So yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated on what we're doing and some little video snippets of the progress along the way.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now and just 1 minute and we can still have a bit of a chat.
Mm.